views, opinions, and content of this show are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not necessarily reflect those of Local Matters Broadcast in the LLC, its owners, partners, affiliates, assigns, or heirs. Having said that, it's now time to say good morning, St. Johns County. Welcome to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, better known in our community as the COA. We are your local nonprofit agency who, for the past 51 years, has been leading and advocating for the dignity and independence of seniors and responding to their changing needs. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA, broadcasting to you live from the studio of WFOI 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. And before we get into our show, let me remind you, as I do each and every week, that if you have a question, a comment, or a suggestion for a radio show topic, well, you can send your email to radio@coasjc.org. Again, that's radio@coasjc.org. And also, if you just want to say that you enjoy listening to the show, because people often ask me, do you know how many people listen? And I honestly do not know that. I do know that you are out there listening, but I would love to hear from you. So just get on there, send me an email, and say that you are somebody that enjoys listening to our weekly radio show. So again, that email address is radio@coasjc.org, and I would love to hear from you. Later in the show, we will be joined by Dawn Oja Dunaway, who participates in our Integrated Memory Enhancement Program. But joining me for the first part of our show is no stranger to the show. She's been on here a few times now, and she serves as our manager for COA's Integrated Memory Enhancement Program, better known as IMEP, and that is Susan Miller. Good morning, Susan.
Good morning.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
It's always good to have your smiling face in the studio. Not that our listeners can see your smiling face, but they'll just have to take my word for it that you are smiling nice and big as you always do, because you are just one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, one of the nicest people I know. And I'm so happy to have you as the person that leads our IMEP.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's just jump into it. And, some of the things that we're going to share today, we've talked about in the past, but, there's a chance that somebody's tuning in this morning that's never heard us have this conversation, right? But according to the Alzheimer's Disease International, there are over 55 million people living with dementia in the world. And by 2050, that number is expected to rise to 139 million. Currently, according to statistics, a new case of dementia is diagnosed somewhere in the world every 3 seconds. That's an amazing statistic when you think about it. Mm-hmm. To help those with Alzheimer's and other related dementia, St. Johns County Council on Aging offers the Integrative Memory Enhancement Program. As I mentioned before, we refer to it as IMEP for short. And you were on the show back in January and August of last year. You provided our listeners with a detailed explanation of IMEP. But again, in case somebody's tuning in that maybe hasn't heard about it before, take some time, tell our listeners about IMEP.
Thank you, Brian. Well, IMEP is near and dear to my heart. I've been with IMEP for a long time, since 2014. And it's a very innovative and dynamic program, and it was developed for people with early onset dementia and or Alzheimer's. But certainly other folks can join us if they'd like. What's really special about it is the people, the participants coming together, sharing a common bond, doing activities together, having fun. We can all be at home doing crossword or word search or whatever, but this is a totally different way to use your brain. And you get to do that with other people, and you have wonderful facilitators that are guiding you through these activities, and you're busy all day long. So it's really phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah, and you bring out a good point. I mean, the fact is, and we do have some people who do IMEP at home. We have a shorter version of what takes place in the classroom, and some people subscribe to that because they're just not able to come out to the classroom. But the socialization aspect of it is very helpful, right? And, so people can be at home and do these same things that are taking place in the classroom, but, there's a great benefit to that socialization part of it because they're getting to be around others who are also going through that same journey that they're going through. And it might be for something different, right? So you mentioned, it's designed for folks with dementia or dementia-related diseases, but it can also be for somebody that maybe had, they had a brain tumor and that's impacted their cognition, right? Or maybe they were in a bad car accident, or they've recovered from a stroke, but they're still so we have other folks can come in there and be a part of that. But it's just great to be around a group of people who are dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with, and you have found, I'm sure, in the classroom that they get to kind of let their guard down and be themselves. They don't have to worry about what everybody else in the room might think about them if they can't remember something.
Exactly. I mean, there's such an acceptance. It's hard to explain, but people see it. I mean, just yesterday we had a new participant in Ponte Vedra. Him and his wife came for the class, and he just kind of fell right in. And his wife said to me later, "Oh my goodness," she said, "he hasn't been this animated and active in months. I just can't believe it." And I was like, wow, I don't know. But I mean, it's just it's a wonderful, wonderful gift. It's a gift for the participant, but it's a gift for the caregiver.
Sure.
Because it's respite time, especially if you do the 5-hour class. I mean, we have different denominations of time that you can sign up for.
Right, and we'll jump into that after we come back from our first commercial break. We'll tell you the locations and the dates and times and the costs and all that other stuff. So we're going to go ahead and take our first commercial break right now. We'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFLY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robson, Program Director for COA. Joined this morning by Susan Miller, who is the manager of COA's Integrative Memory Enhancement Program, better known as IMEP. And so in the first segment, Susan, you were telling us a little bit about IMEP and what makes it so wonderful. So if you would, go ahead and tell our listeners like all of the locations, dates, times, cost of the class, things of that, if you would.
Okay. We are most fortunate. We have 4 locations. In St. Augustine, our location is at Anastasia Baptist Church on A1A, and they offer class on Tuesday from 9 to noon, and then Wednesday and Thursday from 10 to 12. So, and right now we do have openings on Tuesday from 9 to noon. I believe that my classes on Wednesday and Thursday are full, but we do have a waiting list if you'd like to be on it. And the cost for the class for all the classes is the same. It's $20 per hour.
Correct.
So we also have a class at Dawson Chapel on Tuesdays from 10 to 12.
And that's in the West Augustine area.
West Augustine. And then we have a class in Fruit Cove on Thursdays, and that class goes from 9 until 2. It includes lunch. And that's, it's $20 also an hour for that class. And then, of course, Ponte Vedra, we have classes Monday through Thursday. Monday is 9 to noon. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is 9 to 2.
Yes.
And they include lunch.
Okay. And then I wanted to mention that our location at Dawson Chapel in West Augustine, that is for individuals in that area, because that is made possible from a grant that we received from the Community Foundation for Northeast Florida. And so that you do have to be eligible for that in order to come. And but other locations you can attend, and it's $20 an hour. And we do have, from time to time, we also have some United Way scholarships available for some folks as well. And so the best thing to do is, maybe you're out there listening and you think, wow, I can't afford $20 an hour. Well, reach out to Susan, and we can get you on the wait list for a scholarship. And when one of those opens up, we might be able to provide that to you so that you or your loved one can attend it at a lower cost. So So do reach out, and they can contact you. How, Susan?
Oh, they can call me at 904-729-9535. Also email just smiller at stjohnscoa.com works too. Or you can text me. Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
I'm available.
And then also you can always call our main number, 904-209-3700, and you can just say that you want to be connected to IMEP. All right. So, you talked a little bit about the fact that you were in the classroom, and you've talked about what makes it a special program, and you've so much experience, so many people that you've been able to do this with for so many years, and I'm sure it's been a rewarding thing for you personally to see how the program has impacted people.
Yes, because I've seen people become alive. They come in and they're quiet, they're withdrawn, they don't say much, and then after a couple classes, they start interacting, and the best is that we have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this isn't about teaching them anything. They know all this stuff. It's about them thinking and going back and thinking, okay, what is that? I know that, and they do know it,
right?
And it really builds their self-esteem because, so much has happened to them in sometimes a very short period of time, so many changes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people become very withdrawn. And with the class, there's kind of a transformation of, yes, I am a worthy person. I do know these things, or, I'm worth it, or whatever. So it's really just a lot of fun, and it's heartwarming. It's just, it's a blessing that we have this program to offer to people,
mm-hmm.
because it really does help them.
Yeah. And then, for those that are in the 5-hour class, there's a lot more involved. So they're doing the trivia, and they're doing the math problems, they're doing, science, or, they're doing things to stimulate the brain, right? Making them think. And the goal was not to teach them something. The goal was just to get those neurons moving around, right, so that they're thinking about it, because research has shown that that is helpful, right? Mm-hmm. But they're also getting to do things like some chair exercises, and I think you also do some meditation as well.
Yeah, so relaxation. They listen to a CD where they can, they're quiet and they can relax at the end of the day, and it's a nice time to just kind of rest, because it's been a busy day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 5 hours is a long time
Sure.
to be thinking and working on different activities and whatnot. I mean, we do break for lunch and stuff like that, but primarily they're busy all day long.
Mm-hmm.
They really are.
Yeah.
So,
And another thing that you do in this class that I found interesting when I first started working at COA and overseeing this program is the tapping that is done.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
The tapping is referred to as the emotional freedom technique. And it's really, when you do the tapping, it sends a different message to the amygdala in your brain, so it can kind of calm it if you're feeling anxious or whatever. But the tapping helps to increase circulation, bringing that, up through the brain and all that. And it's funny because a lot of people, when they first do it, they're like, well, this is weird,
Yeah.
But then the more they do it, the more they like it. And they're like, hey, you forgot the tapping. And, it's like, okay, but I can just tell you from my own experience that whenever I complete the tapping, I feel refreshed,
Mm-hmm.
just renewed. And it must be that circulation and kind of waking everything up, so to speak. I mean, touch is paramount to the human being,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as being
Mm-hmm.
social, because we aren't meant to be alone.
Right.
So, all these things.
And so to help our
very
listeners
important.
understand a little bit better, the tapping is when you're taking your fingers and kind of tapping on different parts of your body.
Yeah, and primarily the head,
Mm-hmm.
the top of the head and the whole head and the face and the clavicle, and you can do the arms. And then some, I'll do legs, and, everybody's a little bit different on it.
Yeah. And I'm sure when somebody's new to the class, they're kind of like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, I remember when I sat in on one of the classes, I was like, well, this is I mean, this is nice, but it's kind of like you feel kind of awkward, right?
Yeah, well, because it's different. Who does that?
Yeah, but then you also do some like challenging things where you're having to think.
Oh, the brain integration.
Like the move, moving your arms a certain way, right? But you're having to like one is going in one direction, like as far as your hand, like in a circular motion, like forward, while your other one is trying to go backwards. And I'm trying to do it right now while we're on the radio, and it's very difficult to do, but you really have to think about it.
Right, and the reason we do the brain integration is we have, a right and left hemisphere in our brain, and we want to get those neurons firing. So when you do something, one way with one hand and another way with another hand, or a leg, whatever it is, your brain's like, wait a minute, what's going on? What are you doing? But see, that's stimulating because our brain basically is lazy and it wants to do the same thing every day. And that's how we take care of ourselves, by challenging ourselves, by learning. Well, I'm not necessarily we're teaching here, but by doing different things. Even by, driving a different direction, or when you go to the grocery store, instead of walking in and like you normally do, reverse it. You're going to have to think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And those are the kind of things that are good for us to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you think about it. I mean, if you kind of look at the brain kind of like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you think of a muscle that if you don't use it often, and then all of a sudden you're doing something that you have to, and then like the next day you're like, oh my gosh, this my muscle hurts because I did XYZ the day before. And that kind of happens with our brain, right? If we're forcing it to do things that it typically doesn't do. But it's good. It's a good thing, because like with a muscle, the more you do it, the stronger it gets. And so the more you do these things, the stronger it gets. And so that's why we do these things in the classroom, because the research has shown that helps folks with dementia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so before this segment concludes, I just want to also talk about the fact, that IMEP serves a dual purpose. It not only provides participants with socialization and brain-stimulating activities, but it also provides respite for those who care for them. According to the Alzheimer's Association, nearly 12 million Americans provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias. And so as you interact with the caregivers, what feedback do they provide you about how IMEP is benefiting them?
Well, the biggest thing is their loved one is coming home happy. And stimulated and trying to take part in the family, whereas maybe before they were more withdrawn. But they see a difference in their demeanor, and they're excited. Their loved one is excited about going to class. They can't wait to go to class. Is it Tuesday? And it's funny because I'm in Ponte Vedra. That's where my office is. So I know more about Ponte Vedra. But I'm not amazed, but I have so many participants that start with 1 day a week, and then all of a sudden they want to come every day. I mean, it's just, it's just mind blowing to me how that works. And it's very exciting, but I really think it's how their loved one is acting and feels as paramount, but also that they finally have time for themselves.
All right, that music means it's time for our next break. We'll be right back after these messages. And welcome back to the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFLY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robinson, Program Director for COA. And let me just mention that next week in the studio, I will have Linda Ducat, who is the Vice President of COA's Board of Directors, in the studio with me. So tune in next week, same place, same time, right here on WFLY 102.1 FM. All right, joining me for the second half of this morning's show, I am joined by Don Oja Dunaway. He is well known in the St. Augustine folk music scene, having performed over 4 decades at the Milltop Tavern on St. George Street. In 2018, he was included in the first class of inductees to be inducted into the St. Augustine Music Hall of Fame. Good morning, Don.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on the show to be with us this morning, and I gave just a little bit of a brief introduction of who you are, but why don't you elaborate a little bit more and tell our listeners more about you?
All right. Well, I'm 80 years old. I just turned 80, And I think the thing that amazed me most about it is, how'd I get here so fast? I was born in 1945, and people used to say, oh, you're a millennial. I said, no, I'm a victory baby. My mom and dad were both in the Coast Guard. My Uncle Buddy was in the 8th Armored Division on Saipan and Tinian Islands and Tarawa. And I grew up on military bases, mostly in Newfoundland and in Alaska and Annette Island, Alaska, Kodiak, Alaska, and Traverse City, Michigan was one of my favorite places. It was colder than Alaska, where I lived. And there.
I've actually been to Traverse City. I had some friends that lived there, and we were there several years ago. Yeah, very pretty city.
Beautiful. And but I just, when I was in the 9th grade, we were in Kodiak, and I was doing my algebra homework, and my dad said, Donnie, get in here. And I ran in, and there were these 3 guys on Ed Sullivan wearing striped shirts, and they sang Hang Down Your Head, Tom Dooley. And until that moment, I wanted to play third base for the St. Louis Cardinals. And after that, I wanted a guitar. That was from then on, all I could think about was playing guitar. And it took me 2 years to get this little guitar. It was a $1995 guitar from Sears. And Mom and Dad said, well, we'll spend all that money and you won't stay with it. I said, I will. And
you did.
Yeah, I did. And my brother Barry, 10 years younger than me, would hold it on his lap and he'd strum it. And now he's played with Yngwie Malmsteen, the Swedish heavy metal guitarist. They were the first metal band to go to, invited to the Soviet Union in 1988. And he's been with 38 Special for the last 13 years.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really proud of him. He's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just feel really blessed because I'm surrounded by great musicians. Gamble Rogers is the man that brought me to St. Augustine. And I met Gamble when I was a phone man in Miami, and I put a phone in his house on Tiger Tail Avenue. And he said, I like to do my business in there. And so I got him a nice he wanted a red phone to do his business on.
Okay.
So people would say, do you know James Gamble Rogers? I said, well, he records, first guy to record one of my songs. And I put a red phone in his, where he does his business. And they said, oh. But Gamble brought me to St. Augustine. He got me into the Vanguard in Kansas City, the Lantern Inn in Key West, the Raven in Detroit. Every good thing ever happened to me was because of Gamble. Mm-hmm. He's just one of my dearest and my biggest, greatest heroes.
Well, in the last segment of the show this morning, we're going to have you play the guitar and sing for us some. But what I'd like to do in this segment is, the reason that I brought you on the show is to talk about your involvement with IMEP.
Yes.
And you started attending, I believe, I think around maybe October 2024. So you've been over in it, over a year now, a little bit more than that. And I'm just curious for you, like my first question is like the first time you went, like what was that experience like for you?
I felt like I was home, and I've never... I was moved to tears because I was made to feel so welcome, and everyone there is so sweet. I sit by a man named Ed Tucker, and his wife Robin is friends with Sandra, and she's the one that said, well, Don might enjoy that group, and I was there yesterday. And every time I go, the 2 hours just fly, and I leave exhilarated, and it's a very loving, caring group. And I sat by a little woman named Helen, who's just lovely, and I said, my favorite aunt was my dad's youngest brother, Bob's wife, and her name was Helen, but you remind me of her. And but anyway, I look forward to the Wednesdays. I'll miss it from time to time, but not because I want to. I even walk from our house down there, and it takes me about an hour and a half, but it's a great walk. And it said, and one of the things that I found out was great, walking is supposed to help your memory. Mm-hmm. And I would play at the Milltop 9-hour days. I could sing all day long and never repeat a song. I could remember if I heard a song that I liked, and some of them were like 9 minutes long. If I liked the song, I would just know it. Mm-hmm. And then, I guess, a short time ago, I began to I couldn't find my glasses. I started to thinking something was wrong with my memory, and I had volunteered at geriatric homes, 5 geriatric homes for 7 years. So I saw a lot of people that were experiencing that. And I thought, oh my God, this must be early onset of Parkinson's or something. And I had a bunch of tests run, and my doctor was really sweet. He said, nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. And so it was just, you're old guy now, and this happens when you get older. Because I think, I'm the only guy that does this, But
well, now that you've been in IMEP for over a year, like, how has it helped you? Like, you've talked about how you enjoy being in the classroom, but just going week after week and having been in it this length of time now, how has it helped you personally?
Well, I started to think that there was something really wrong with me. And then I find out, I listened to Ed and Phil and just all the people. We all have the same thing. We're going through it. But I go there and everybody's smiling. We laugh for 2 hours. And that helps me because I come home exhilarated every week, and I look forward to going back. The leaders are Sam. He's a young man, and he's incredible.
All right. Well, we already got to go to our next commercial break, so we will be right back after these messages, and you'll get to hear Dawn sing for us. Stay tuned. And welcome back to the final segment of the weekly radio show, the St. Johns County Council on Aging, here on WFOY 102.1 FM, your local radio station for news, sports, and talk. I'm Brian Robson, Program Director for COA, and I'm joined in the studio by Don Oja Dunaway. And in the last segment, he was talking about how IMEP has helped him personally. And during the introduction that I gave, I talked about your long career in the music scene and the fact that you were inducted into the St. Augustine Music Hall of Fame. And so I thought it would be great to have you sing for us in this last segment of the show. So we got about 10 minutes left. So sing whatever you want to sing. Well,
Gamble Rogers is the man that brought me to St. Augustine and introduced me to. I have so many heroes here. Bob Patterson, Joe Mark. This is like a haven for really gifted people. And I feel so blessed to be here because I've been surrounded by the first time I came here. It was like that. And especially with Gamble, because Gamble was the first one to record one of my songs. And that he brought me to this lovely town because for years I'd wanted to play in St. Augustine. Now we were in Denver playing at at this club, and he says, "Can you guys?" And I was singing with a guy named George Corachano, who was from Lima, Peru. And he said, "Can you be in St. Augustine for Memorial Day weekend?" And I said, "Brother, we will be there." And we left Denver at 3:00 in the morning. And we drove and drove and drove and drove. And George had a gold Toronado. And we're going through Kansas City, and there's all this traffic. And he said, "Man, we can't stop. So I'm going to arch my back. You slide under me and take the wheel." I said, "You're going to get us killed?" He said, "No, man, trust me. I'm going to arch my back. You slide under me." So I did. And I got under him, and I took the wheel, and boom. And the next thing, it was hours and hours, but I wake up in the morning, or we pulled into St. Augustine. It was pitch black, had no idea where we were going, but I stopped. And when the sun's coming up, I'm looking at the Castillo de San Marcos. And George says, "Wow, what is that?" I said, "That's a big fort, man." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "We're in St. Augustine." And that's when Trade Winds was owned by Duke and Tony Leonard, and it was our favorite bar. But we'd been there for three nights, and some guy said, "You're the best two-man band I ever heard." I said, "Well, how would you know? Y'all never hush up." And he said, "Oh, no, you don't see. I'm a roofer, and this guy, and there's shrimpers that wear their boots, Kippy Kinsey and all these really cool guys." And he said, "We work really hard. We work very hard, and if we don't like the music, we're gone. And if the music is good, the conversation is awesome." I said, "Well, then we must be killing it." And from then on, that was our favorite club to play. We would travel all over out to Kansas and Nebraska and places like that. Lincoln, Nebraska was amazing to be there.
All right. Well, I don't want to cut you short on your story, but we're going to run out of time. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead and play something for us?
This is called Gamble's Guitar, and I just think I need to play this. Out down in St. Augustine, FLA, walking beside the beach one day, the sun beat down like a steel drum play. I swear I could hear Gamble's guitar. Had a book and a joint, chunk of bread and the seabirds, they was wheeling overhead. You knew you got Elmore Leonard and Panama Red. I could hear Gamble's guitar. He's coming out the trade winds, you know. Well, I'm headed south past Manatee, rolling down to the Florida Keys. I'm going to get things straight between Jesus and me. I really want to see Gamble again. Yeah, I want to see Gamble. Yeah, I'm rolling south past Manatee, getting on down to the Florida Keys. Mm-hmm. Wanna hear Gamble's guitar. Hey, Gamble. Yeah. Thank you.
Good job. So that song means a lot to you then.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Gamble, I was a telephone man in Miami. I think I said that. And when I met him, a guy came in, and his name was Mike Smith. And we were listening to a Steve Gillette record. And he said, "Well, who's that?" And yeah, that's Steve Gillette. And Mike Smith says, "Oh, hey, Steve, I'm so glad to meet you." You know, I said, "No, I'm not Steve Gillette." You know, I said, "My name is Don." He says, "Well, what do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a phone man. I climb telephone poles, but I sing." He said, "Play me something." And I started a song, and halfway through it, he said, "I want you at the Flick Sunday night." And that's how I got into the Flick. And then was at the Flick for years with Max and Annie Launer And Ron Kikasola and I wound up singing together for a couple of years. And we were called Cheyenne. And we did lots of songs about Native Americans. Or, it was, you could say Indians then.
Mm-hmm.
But several songs based up from Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. So I got contacted by Ken Burns, and he said, I want to hear these songs before you record them. And when I did, he said, that's good. Mm-hmm. And so that was just made me really happy.
Mm-hmm.
And but I lose my train of thought. That's part of the reason why I'm going to IMEP.
Yeah.
Because, to get to play guitar as much as I have all my life has been a joy. And then to see my baby brother, he's not my baby brother now. I mean, I'm 80, he's 70, but he's still rocking with 38 Special. Mm. I mean, they're all over the country now. He called me one night. He said, guess who I'm hanging out with? I said, I don't know who. I said, Luke Graham. I said, you guys are hanging out with Foreigner? And he said, yeah, man. and Foreigner's coming to town.
Okay.
So I said, Sandra.
Well, that music means that it's time for our show to end. Don, thank you so much for coming on the show with us this morning.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, we will see you here next week, same time, same place. Have a great week, everybody.